Same time, all the time, we are here. But first and foremost, I would like to acknowledge. Wow, fantastic! Really? Okay, great. I can't frickin' stream. I'd like to acknowledge the Tongva people for being the traditional landowners of Los Angeles. Join us for Art of Rock here every week, roughly this time. ANGELSPIT'S Twitch is the best place to start. I can't. Damn, man, this is giving me fucking all sorts of colors of joy. No, looks like can we? No, it's not letting me do that. Okay, I can't chat. That's fine. Thanks. Here every week, we're here, we're doing it. I can't copy and paste stuff right now, so everything's kind of lost, but that's fine. ANGELSPIT'S Patreon makes this possible, and so many members of ANGELSPIT'S Patreon are here, and I thank you so much. We're going to keep each other going. $3 a month, and you can help keep me going. There's a really good playlist called the Industrial Incisions playlist. Many of the bands on ANGELSPIT'S Patreon are on that playlist, and they're new bands that you need to get to know about, and they're amazing, plus with a whole bunch of old tracks that you probably know as well. And after this, we're going to raid on over to MTV TV because it's amazing, and your new favorite band is waiting for you. And if you make a video, send it to MTV TV, and they will send it. They will play it. And people are going to love it. So just do it. Trust me. Welcome to the Art of Rock. Rezi, I'm going to kick it open with you. You have an amazing question. Hit me, baby.
Allow me to stumble over my own words for a bit. We've got this idea that it's pretty pervasive. You hear people talk about this a lot. Like there's a concept of great song. Great song is a thing. Great song is a quantitative thing that we can actually talk about meaning something. It's not just subjective and it means something different to everybody, although there's an argument for that. But on top of that, there's also this idea of you can't really ruin a great song by having a shitty mix, so don't worry too much about that. And by the same token, we can't really solve a shitty song just by doing a fantastic mix and arrangement. So the question that kind of comes to mind as I think of people talking about this is like, what do we actually mean by those two things? And more, I want to think, I've been thinking about song. What do we hear out in the world that equals great song? What do we respect in some of our favorites that equal great song, that makes that an example of great song? And what do we try to do in our own work to adopt those elements that we've identified and love as great song? I think that I did that without stumbling over too many of the words.
I'm really impressed. Can I kind of stumble? It seems to be Stumbling Saturday today. There's a formula for what a great song is, but there's just this thing that you feel and you know it. And the difficulty with the feeling and the knowing it part is that the more you hear the song, the less you feel it and the less you know it. It's that initial plink that makes it work. My answer really sucks on this one. Alex, hit me.
So I used to be very self-conscious about mixing. I feel like I'm not very good at it. But I watched a talk by some mixing engineer, and he basically said the most important thing is that the levels are like in balance to each other, and that is like 50% of the work of the mix. Then the next stuff is EQing and compression, but don't overthink it. Just do the best you can and you will learn, and just don't overthink it. And as Rezi said, like if it's a good song, it will blossom despite the mix. Yeah, basically I think the best thing is to just try things out. Maybe be a bit naive, because sometimes there's like this teenager with a cracked copy of a DAW making something without having like the best idea on what the right gain staging is and how to set a compressor properly, and they're scoring a hit. So just do your best and don't worry about everything else.
Thank you. That's really good advice. Thank you. I want to throw this to Mr. Drake.
I think there's probably, you know, two answers in my mind to this, like the scientific, you know, formula to what goes into a great song. And then there's the subjective side that's probably a little bit different for everyone. I'm going to answer sort of from the subjective perspective. For me, I think first and foremost, if I don't resonate with the lyrical content, it's just right off the bat, it's not going to be a great song for me. A lot of songs that are really, really catchy. I'll like them at first, but they don't have the staying power. I find that, yeah, just standing the test of time for me is it's a good kind of gauge of the classics, you know. There's certain songs that I can go back to and listen to from, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and they're still great no matter how many times I listen to them. Other ones, you know, these catchy songs that grab me right away, I'm tired of them within a week and they go to the wayside and I may never listen to them again. Yeah, I don't know. That's a bit fuzzy, but I'll leave it at that for now.
All right. Thank you. That was great. Thank you. Rob, I'm going to throw it to you, then I'll shoot my mouth off.
So I guess the question back to you, Razzie, is, are you asking what makes a song influential on your style? Because lyrics themselves can inspire people, and you know, you don't have to copy someone's lyrics. That's not the way we do stuff, but it can inspire you. Like if I listen to 9 Inch Nails' Hurt, that inspires me in a variety of ways. And the mix actually is really important in that one, because you have basically a peak out of, it's almost positive dB at the end of the song with the guitar. And it's an ultra extreme to the quiet sense and nature of the song as it builds. I find that the mix in that is, it's obviously wrong because he does everything wrong on purpose, but it has an effect and it is inspiring. And the feeling of the lyrics in that song, as an example, is also inspiring to me. But the question is, what do you glean from something like that you can transfer? What do you learn that you can transfer over into your own material? I think that's the tricky part, which is maybe a bit subconscious for me. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, I don't even have a clarification. Like I didn't necessarily mean anything by the question other than to prompt, you know, thinking about it in that way. And I think your distinction is important because we are talking in a room full of producers who are extremely sensitive to how arrangement and mix and instrumentation choices and even mastering present the song. And in some cases, we're talking genres where noise is the point of it, and there are great noise pieces for people. And we're talking in some aspects of where pop idioms integrated with some surprise and changes are the important part, so that people recognize the dance floor structure. And there's a huge breadth of what that can mean to people. So yeah, no, I appreciate your pointing out that those things are kind of integral and connected. I think that's, in this group especially, very important. But I am also curious that there are, you know, as Drake was saying, there are some elements that are traditional song things about great song, and it's like cohesion plus variety and some sort of emotional resonance in a lyric usually, and some sort of familiarity from the frameworks that we even use to build it, like it's a 12 tone or you know, like a diatonic key centered kind of thing in Western tonality, like things that we catch on and adopt and grow with and spend a lifetime becoming our favorites. And I think we've talked about those elements a lot in the past, but maybe just bringing up some of the very, very specific things that you found like what you're talking about with the Nine Inch Nails mix, going into noise and distortion that we've adopted and found.
Thank you. This is a really interesting conversation because it's, I think that at the core of it is what's a good song, because the mood and the spirit of the song is going to then give inspiration to the way it's produced. Like, do I use lots of reverb? Don't I? You know? And, you know, it's interesting with Hurt, you know, the compression on that track is so crazy. You can hear the effect of crying in his mouth. So it's, I think step one is, what is the song? Am I in the right path here, Rezi? Yes.
There's one thing that I just came to mind, like, as I think about it while you're talking, and that's like, do we even care, this group in particular, about can you play this on acoustic guitar? Like, how does this translate when you sit down and play it? Like, is that a factor for anybody, or accompanied on piano, self-accompanied solo performer with a song and a story in their heart and a single instrument like a troubadour? Is that feature critical?
For me, believe it or not, it kind of is. I have a thing that if you can play a track on an acoustic guitar and a little recorder flute, then it's a good song. And that acoustic guitar might be jamming out in D or whatever, the whole song. But for me, musicality is important because I believe, well, for me, I can't really speak on behalf of humans anymore because they're a strange evolving bunch that the best songs I've ever written have been while sitting at a keyboard or smashing it out on a bass guitar, where the structure of the song and the embellishments are there at a very rudimentary level, if that makes sense. And it's interesting, smashing it out's kind of very accurate because it's sculpture and you start with a sledgehammer on a big chisel, then you go to a smaller chisel and smaller and smaller and smaller until you're using a toothpick. So yeah, I think, and I think lyrics are almost everything for me, because there is a thing called test of time, and algorithms and everything else aren't going to change human nature as much as they're trying to. They're not going to change human nature. And just like Drake said, that really cool song that's this week on whatever fucking dumb shit, social media bullshit that you're doing, you dumb fucking dance to, fuck off. Yeah, fuck off. You won't be listening to that next week. And the pressure of artists increasingly to chase that dragon as if it's a needle full of heroin, to try and figure out how they can get that career high, is just bullshit. What wins at the end of the day is content. Content is king, queen, or emperor, or whatever gender you want to assign to it. Content is supreme, always supreme. And you may take the money and run and make fast money, but Dark Side of the Moon, I believe, is still charting. And it's always in the top 200. And I think it stayed in the top 100 for like 30 years or something. Then it ducked out, then it came back in. That's what I'll say, is that people want to hear a good song. The Beatles are eternal for a reason. Mozart is eternal for a reason. Radiohead will probably be eternal for a reason. And the reason is they're good fucking songs. So whether it's on a modular synth or an acoustic guitar, I don't know. I could give 10 examples of where weird bleep block music makes a great track that will be around for a long time, and then I could give 10,000 examples of where it won't. I I don't know, but there's something magic in the human spirit. And when it transforms itself to become human, then magic things happen. So as far as we are concerned, you must focus on taking all of this negative shit in your head that is making it difficult to neurologically cohabitate with this bullshit that we call modern life. And you must turn that into music. That's what you must do. And you must make notes about the chaos and the craziness that you're seeing, either notes of beauty or notes of horror. And you must convert them into lyrics and shapes, because that's what we do. And no dumb fucking algorithm that will be here today, gone tomorrow, that's telling you what you have to do in order for your careers to survive, for all the latest and greatest cool things that are happening on TikTok or whatever. Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. You will write good music because that's what you do. Ivan, go.
I had so many thoughts. Yeah, I think one of the big differences between good and not good music is good music, Dark Side of the Moon. People don't just listen to it and throw it away. They listen to it and then cherish it. They return to it and they keep returning to it because they cherish it. Stuff music is just content. Like listen to it this week and then throw it away because that's how that works. I think I'm trying to make stuff that is going to outlive me. So if you're not doing that, like if you're just gonna chase being content, that's I've done the experiments. It's easy to make that kind of music because you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. But if you want to like stand the test of time, you're gonna need to survive time, and that means being something that will keep engaging people over and over again, and keep finding new people to engage. And that's why we can go back and listen to stuff from back in the day, and the stuff that has survived has survived because it's good. I've been listening to a lot of like early Cabaret Voltaire lately, and I mean that is not terribly well mixed and it is not terribly well mastered. I will say that part out loud, but it does not matter because it's good. Okay, some of it is not good, but the stuff that's good is really good. Because you kind of they were making up new rules, which innovation I think is part of being good. Like do something that don't follow the trends. Go find a new place. And then on the whole like how to get there part, I have found like writing the bass parts. I will put on a basic bass synth patch and just grind that out on the synth because it's bass. But like chords and melody, I'm looking to play that on it. I'll play that on the upright piano in the front room, and if the chord progression is going to work on that, it'll work on anything. And the melody works on that, it will work on anything. And the universality of when you hit that universality, then you start to bump into the good category.
Thank you, man. Absolutely true. If it works on that, it'll work on anything. Thank you. Rob, tell me about your epic journey of rock.
I want to give a shout out to my mate in Melbourne, Christian. He's on the YouTube chat, and he made a couple of examples of what's good for him, and it's Mike Patton, tubular bells. And so you think about those, and they're two extremes, right? You've got you've got a band that's kind of punk rock, which is making meaning in its lyrics. And the reason why it's memorable is I think the meaning is relevant at that time. So if you remember a band from the 80s or the 90s and you feel the meaning behind those lyrics, it was relevant then. And it makes you happy because it brings back a lot of memories and you can kind of relive the past by listening to that song again. But the memories and the meaning is one thing. What if it's an instrumental, you know, space rock from Pink Floyd or Tubular Bells? You know, if it's Mike Oldfield or John Michael Jarre, there is no lyrics in there. There's no meaning. What it does is it creates imagination for you to fill in the blanks with new sounds, new experimentation, like the blaster beam in Apocalypse Now. It creates a new emotion without words. And I think what maybe makes a memorable song is just one or two things. It could be the lyrics. It could be the lyrics and a riff, like think about Pantera Walk. You know, it's got a solid, meaty riff. The lyrics are very simple, but they're powerful and punchy. That's two things. And then for what it's worth, you know, you've got a mix of songs out of Dark Side of the Moon, which are both human nature, captured, like the Lunatic, Brain Damage, as well as an instrumental piece, which is imaginative and it allows you to fill in your own blanks. And I think if you create a good song, you've probably only got to nail one or two elements to make it memorable. And I actually watched the Dark Side of the Moon creating documentary last night. It happens. And they said that after 2 or 3 hours of jamming, there would be one or two happy accidents which formed the structure of each song. And they said that most of the production, even the mixing by Alan Parsons, there were happy accidents in that which were genius. And none of it was ever planned or scripted. It just happened. Like the female vocals in Brain Damage. It just happened. It was totally whack and it worked. And they didn't touch it after that. So maybe it's only one or two things. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm going to shoot my mouth off for 30 seconds. Firstly, g'day to Guy in Melbourne, sisters in Melbourne, talking to them yesterday. Sorry about the heat and the cold, but it's 4 seasons in one day. We never talk about Neil Finn. Fucking one of the greatest songwriters. Never talk about Neil Finn. Anyway, I had these things written down and now they're gone. God damn it. Okay. Fuck around and find out. That's just it. Fuck around and find out. That's what the whole thing is about for me. And I'm learning increasingly, like, it's really funny that when the more fear I have, the lower my confidence, the less I am going to go out and fuck around and to find out. I will set myself up for happy little accidents. Fear means getting back into process for me, so I have to be very careful of that. And right now I am in a bad place for that to happen, because of everything that is going on in the world that I don't even give a fuck to go into right now. It is affecting my ability to clearly create music because I can't. There's so much chaos involved in writing a track. You've got to be open to it. It's the happy accidents. One thing I don't like about Doors is that I find that maybe I don't know the instrument well enough, which is ironic. There's not enough happy accidents in a door for me. That's why I like using Blaster Beam. A Blaster Beam is pure accidents. It's pure mistakes. It is a beast that will not be yielded. So you're going to come up with amazing shit all the time because you have no fucking idea what's going on. So, and also modular synths, ditto. They're great for that fantastic fuckery. I think a good song is like a joke, and it's it's like one of those jokes where suddenly everything in the world makes sense. Like, you have this weird, funny thought and it makes you laugh out loud. I think that's the same area of your brain that creates a good song. With that piece of brain that goes, well, everything is fucked, but here it is wrapped up in a nice shiny ball and everything seems to make sense. And you go, oh, that's great, ha ha ha. Same thing with the song. Fists in the air, fuck yeah. It just seems to come. You can force it, you can formulate it. Sometimes you have to. That's the real, like I've said so many times, it's the bitch about motivation. To get motivated and to get inspired, you have to start working first. And that's the thing as well. Pink Floyd spent 3 hours in a room. I don't want to go to rehearsal tonight. I don't either. I'm just not in the mood. I don't feel like this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to set up my bass. I don't want to be here. What are you doing tonight, Rob? That's kind of cool. Here's that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Wow. Oh my God. Suddenly it happens. And you bringing your shit from the car into the rehearsal room suddenly doesn't matter anymore. And the argument that you're always having with the lead guitarist suddenly doesn't matter anymore because suddenly you start communicating on a higher level. And it's very difficult to do that when it's just you. That's why having instruments that are wacky is good. Broken, not worked, unruly, etc. So there's a thing in opera called Park and Bark, just bringing it back to the original storyline. There's a thing called Park and Bark. Isn't that great? Opera's got the most really, really grotesque things that get said in opera. Like, people think opera's all very hoity. It is, but behind the scenes, it's not hoity. It's a bunch of drunk musicians and a bunch of drunk stagehands fucking up and doing the maddest shit and going, wow, how crazy. For the whole history of opera has just been about the maddest shit that we can possibly pull off on the stage. That's it. That's opera. And anyway,
Carl, just before I forget, I want to see you do a opera is not hoity-toity, prove me wrong video.
All right.
Sitting in a park with a table, talking to people.
Talking to pigeons and people. Yeah, but it's not though. It's just the history of opera and what went on behind the scenes. It's like, wow, that guy is a fuck up who couldn't get out of bed, and he wrote the Magic Flute, or whatever. But anyway, so there's a thing in opera called Park and Bark, and Park and Bark means there's a stage and there's an orchestra in the pit, or usually sometimes the orchestra's behind him, and now the soprano is going to go up and sing her part and clap and take a step back and maybe sit down, and now the tenor will get up and sing his aria, and that's it. It's very fucking boring. Park and Bark. Then there's like opera as it was meant to be, which is this grand theatrical wank about this madness, and where they turn dots on a page that is this weird foreign language into this amazing experience. That's opera. That's what opera does. So, and that's also got what good rock and roll does, a good stage show, if you have $1 trillion billion. But you don't need $1 trillion billion to put that inside someone's head, and that's production. Because with your production, Park and Bark, try and remember this, is possibly the equivalent of, okay, I'm EQing the drums, now I'm EQing this, and blah, 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 there's a mix. But when you listen to, for example, Hurt, or Everything on Dark Side of the Moon, or So Much Shit Done by Yes, or fucking Trevor Horn, where the production itself is the method of telling the story. It's setting the scene. They're setting it up using all of this gizmo and reverbs and panning and shit to create an actual environment. And they're actually, then the production might say, well, actually in the third verse, when we hit that third verse, everything is out except the voice, and the voice is whispering. And behind the voice, a tornado is going to erupt, and then it is going to fucking explode. Something remarkable is going to happen. And that's production's ability to go in there and say, well, we're going to change the arrangement of the song, and then we're going to do all this stuff so that when it hits, it's going to explode out. The stereo field is going to explode out, and then it's going to go totally dry, and then we're going to pull the reverb back in, so it's just going to lose itself in this wash of reverb or something. Or you might say in the verses, everything is basically pan center, and as the choruses come in and build, the panning is going to push out. Shit like that. And you're not supposed to do that, but I don't give a fuck. Also, officially from now on and every single day forward until the end of time, December 13th in Los Angeles is Depeche Mode Day. The day has been devoted to the band in Los Angeles. I don't even think they have a fucking star on the Walk of Fame. I know they do, I think. There you go. So come to LA on December 13th because it will be winter and it will be warm. And you can leave your grouchy, fucking rainy, shitty, snowy places except you, Rob, because you're in Florida. And come to LA where it's lovely. So there you go. Alex.
Sorry, I got to pop up. What I wanted to say is my rule is I try to write songs that can be beatboxed by one or two people. And I agree with you that it's more difficult to find happy accidents in DAW. Yeah, I think that was it.
Thank you. We've got to figure out, and Drake, I'll throw this to you in a sec. We've got to figure out, how does one person have happy accidents? How do you do that as one person? But that's possibly another conversation. But I want to hear what you have to say right now, Drake.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the happy accidents. It's pretty special when that happens, and I'm always kind of floored. You know, like, wow, where did that come from? I think I've experienced that individually from time to time. I've also experienced that in you know, working with other people in a band type scenario. I think when the right group of musicians come together, that there can be this magic that emerges. And you know, the output of that can be you know, like the most amazing music. Look at Pink Floyd, a lot of the bands that have already been mentioned. It's just, yeah, like this timeless thing that can happen. Forgetting a lot of I had all that stuff I was going to say. I think for now, writing music about the stuff that really makes me angry that's happening in the world is it's very therapeutic. It's very important for me. But I try to keep it sort of in a universal, archetypal kind of context. I'm not going to be mentioning any names specifically, because I think in order for music to be great and stand the test of time, it has to be in some sense kind of generic. One of the things that really irks me, particularly when I'm reading a novel, is when, you know, consumer brand names come up in the story, in the text, and it's really obvious what's happening there. And I will stop reading a book when that happens, and I will put it away and find something else to read, because it taints the entire thing for me. And that's, I feel the same way about music. It really taints the music if it doesn't have that universal time, like it can traverse time. You know, if I'm talking about rising up and fighting something, that should have a universal appeal. Like someone could hear that from 500 years ago and go, yeah, you know, that applies to me. I feel it. You know, if I'm too specific, then I don't think that's possible. Out.
Brilliant. Thank you. One question for you, sir, just before I throw it to you, Ivan. Have you heard of an artist named Francis Bacon Drake?
I have not.
He's a painter from England, was a painter. I think he died in the 80s or maybe the 90s. There's a movie about him called Love is the Devil, and it's really incredible. Francis Bacon is, he was a big influence on H.R. Geiger. But his classical, beautiful, horrifying, screaming torment, anger, and he did a piece called The Meat Pope, which is just really amazing. When you look at it, you go, what is this guy going through? It's incredible. Francis Bacon, I just put it in there. And the movie's called Love is the Devil. It's quite incredible. And if you get a chance, I would definitely watch a documentary about him. Very, very, very inspiring artist. Because he walked the walk. Thank you. Ivan, blow my mind.
Yeah, I think being overly specific to your moment in time is kind of risky because things change. But at the same time, the things that matter tend not to change. You know, you talk about an individual doing something stupid at the moment. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, like there will always be another individual doing something equally stupid. You know, so yeah, it doesn't really change that much. You know, there's a Kino song called in English it would be the Cuckoo, and you know, one of the lines in this song, he repeatedly mentions that you know, the one thing that he can still trust is his pack of cigarettes because that's all he's got left. And it's good stuff because like that song's from like 30 years ago. It still applies.
Thank you. And I will say, sorry.
Better by very good vocals.
Thank you. I will say also that Cigarettes and All I've Got Left is a great rhyming scheme. Very good. Thank you, Ivan. Razzie, explode my brain.
So you asked what a one person happy accidents kind of thing, how that happens. And I two things come to mind for me. And the first is that's sort of where gear acquisition syndrome comes from. You know, the seeking new toys that don't work the way you think they do, or are maybe broken in different ways than the ones that you already have. And those are the sort of true accidents where really unanticipated results come from what you usually do. You're not trying to do something weird. It's just this piece of gear behaved in a way that doesn't match your expectations and even what it's supposed to do. And then the second element to that is if you're capable of not buying new gear all the time, putting the work in and spending the long hours, I guess, doing different things with the skills and equipment and instruments and ideas that you already have, and doing the long sessions that result in going to places that maybe push through some boredom, maybe push through some tedium, and maybe get you onto the other side of the not wanting to do it into, I guess, a place of almost experimentation, but where, you know, your routine dexterity results in pushing past boundaries of that what your gear usually returns to you. It's kind of a more heady way of saying just fuck around and find out, but putting in the time element of the work, I think it might be a concise way of saying that too. And
brilliant point. And again, I will iterate, emphasize the importance of allowing yourself to have fun. You are allowed to have fun. And nobody's commented that my microphone is distorting today. Have fun. You are allowed to. Give yourself permission to have fun. In fact, if you're going to make music tomorrow, you go tomorrow from the hours of this to this, and you write that down somewhere, turn your fucking phone off, and go in there. And when you wake up in the morning, you go from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., I'm going to have fun and experiment with music. Do that. Think, how would Eno do this? Think, channel Eno. Just do it. It's fun. It's interesting. Do it. Drake, blow my mind.
Yeah, in terms of happy accidents, I think it's important to be, you know, to capture those happy accidents. If you're not already in a state of producing, like I don't know if you're screwing around with something modular and all of a sudden it's like, it clicks into something that's just really, working well, to take the time and lay that down. And for me, it doesn't just apply to audio. There was one night years ago where I was editing some video that I captured, and I don't know how it happened. It's never happened again. But my phone, this crappy little video editing application I was using, started to glitch, and the way it was glitching, it was cutting out frames, and it was a live performance that I was playing with. And I'm looking at it, and how is it doing this? But it was almost syncing up to the music. And it was like 1 a.m. And I was like, I'm going to have to record this tomorrow. And I stopped myself. I was tired. And I was like, no, you need to record this right now. You need to, start screen capturing it, because it's probably not going to do this tomorrow. And sure enough, it didn't. And I'm really happy that I spent, an hour at that time to just take the time to capture it, because sometimes those happy accidents, they're not replicable. It's a one-time thing, and you're in that moment, and it just feels like there's magic happening. And maybe that's exactly what it is. But I think you got to grab it when it happens.
Thank you. I have a lot I want to talk about regarding that, but first, here's Alex.
Maybe you should just talk about it and I come after that.
Okay. Oh, thank you. I think it's very important to try and build a sandpit. And what you got to understand is that 90% of your sandpit is already there, a play place. You might need to clean it up a bit. You probably don't need to buy more gear. As I have gone on and on and on about for the last month about the Emulator 4 that I was going to sell, and meanwhile I've been looking at all these other pieces of gear that I really have to get, and I really have to get these pieces of gear, and I really need these pieces of gear, and oh my god, I really need these pieces of gear, and I need these pieces of gear, I need more gear. And I pull the Emulator 4 out, and it's so fucking good. It blows my mind how good that sampler is. And it was just sitting in a rack. And I have no desire to buy more gear right now because I don't need to buy more gear. Anyway, the point of the issue is that your sandpit is good enough just the way it is. But there might be some other things that you could get too, and they could be pots and pans. And they could be things, bits of scrap and shit around the yard, around the house. One of the wonderful thing about being inventive is to put yourself into an environment that you've never been in before. And for me, that means building an instrument, because I don't know how to play this thing and I've never played it before. What does a string sound like, a piano wire sound like when it's suspended, stretched off one of those old radar dishes, that service dishes things, or a bowl or something? What happens if I fill that with water and pluck it? What happens if allowing yourself to do that results in some wonderful things. And it's really interesting that once again, people talk about the ability to record stuff as you're going. I can't do that. I just can't do it, just because I hate editing. And for me, it's I have to think about it and throw it down. It's a similar thing with I can't just sit in front of a camera and talk like now. I have to have a script, because if I don't, it's just this great big long blurb of crap. But that's just me. That's just my brain. But if you can work like that, man, power to you. I'm jealous. So do something that you've never done before. Get some spoons or something and hang them above something, and then whack them with a bowl and record it. And drop it 5 octaves and reverse it. Fuck around, you're allowed to. Alex, tell me your amazingness.
So I would change the topic if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, I've been asking myself why sometimes my synthesizers sound better in certain cases than in others. And I think my synthesizers, if they're analog, sound better if they've been on for a while, like half an hour, an hour. I feel like they have a better sound. Do you feel the same, or am I going crazy?
Well, you're definitely going crazy. In fact, you're batshit insane. But I think you are right, though. But you are crazy. You're fucking whoop-de-doo. You're bananas. You're bonkers. But yeah, I mean, analogs, the longer you leave them on, the more mushy and good the more they cook in their juices. Slow roast. Rob is going to hit us with wisdom now.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast with old equipment. That's a rare find. But yeah, Alex, you are completely insane. There's nobody else experiences that except for you. But we know that it's reality. Some old synths with the analog circuits, you got to turn them on and wait for like 10 minutes for them to kind of warm up. And you know, it's the same thing with these freaking old valve radios I've been fucking with in the shed of fuckery. You'll find stuff change over time, and that's a good thing. And the more you fuck with it, the longer you fuck with it, the more interesting it's going to get. And as capacitors kind of corrode and circuit boards get shorts and stuff like that, it'll change the behavior and the characteristics of that circuit. And you know, it's scary because you're going to have to clean that shit up at some stage and recondition it. But when you recondition it, you're going to lose some personality. So it's a double-edged sword. The goodness of analog deterioration of a circuit is a good thing. It adds character. But the moment that you change out those capacitors for tantalums or something else, you're changing the behavior and the character, the personality of that instrument for some of the old stuff, I will say.
Yeah, man, totally. It's interesting that the Moog drifts, even the Emaxes, they move around a lot, and obviously the modular does a lot as well. The interesting thing about the modular is it's pretty fast at warming up. I guess I don't know why, but it warms up kind of fast. Although unless it's like it's got tubes in it, then it takes forever. Tubes. Did you want to comment more on this, Mr. Alex?
No, I mean, it's something like it sometimes bothers me that my instruments sound better and worse to my ears, and I feel like I can't control it, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, basically. I don't have like a big philosophy behind it, but I've been thinking about it.
All right, cool. I mean, like one thought is just turn them on, make yourself a coffee or whatever, and then jump into them. I would like to, if we want to talk more about this, Rob, I see your hand. I want to hear from you, and then I'd love to hear a rant from you about modern production that we were talking about before. But Rob, the floor is yours.
This is one and the same. So this is a segue. I like to think about, as an engineer, I like to think about things as either analog or digital. And I don't mean that in the synthesizer sense. I mean that in the sense that the human interaction with systems can be more digital versus analog. So if you're recording something and there's a lot of noise in that recording, and you're getting glitches in your video recording and you're screwing with connectors and stuff like that, that's not on purpose. That's not discrete. That's not been designed that way. That is, to me, it's an analog approach to creation. And there's a benefit in that. It's not necessarily replicable. You do have to record it when it happens because you'll never get it back, potentially. And that's the importance of recording your jams for hours, because you'll forget that shit and you'll never remember what you did at the time to make that sound or that hook. And so the analog piece for me is I don't suffer the problem that you have, Carl. I will record stuff for hours. I will make monotonous crap, but I record it for that purpose. And I'm not producing it to make money. I'm storing it so I can go back to it. So back in the early days, you know, when you started to burn CDs with audio on them, the Red Book format, computers weren't that great. They would break down. And so I would run out of space or have a failure recording a 1 or 2 hour session. So I started recording everything on stereo VHS tapes with video. And the recording sound was only as good as the analog going through my desk out to the VCR recorder. So there is an analog influence there and a mix influence with people on sliders where you've set it or you've not touched it again. And the reason why this is important is because indoors, with so much ability to automate and direct and specify and choose exactly what you want to do, it is more difficult to get happy accidents in a DAW for that reason. Whereas if I run things with noise problems into a mixer, I'm going to screw with the controls in real time, and I'm going to find things that are interesting or accidental, and I've got to record it. And this comes back to punk, the essence of punk. DIY, do it yourself. Don't rely on a computer that's going to control it all for you. You've got to physically human in the loop it. You've got to create it yourself and muck with it yourself. And what was interesting with the Pink Floyd documentary was Alan Parsons saying about 30% of the production of Dark Side of the Moon was the creativity and musicianship of the mixing. And at one point in time, every single member of the band had fingers on sliders doing shit. And I think that analog piece of involvement is not very well addressed in the digital community. They all focus on the plugins, on automation, on the graphics creation. I do get happy accidents with plugins, don't get me wrong. I don't get it with the digital mixing desk. I do get happy accidents with an analog desk plugged into weird amplifiers, weird instruments, combinations of weird synthesizers and pots and pans, if you like, Carl. That's where the goodness comes from. And to me, that's all analog, and that's at the grassroots. I mean, if I listen to a punk record, guitars, drums, vocals, it sounds terrible from a mixing point of view, clinically. But it sounds freaking amazing. It's fantastic. And that analog essence, I think, is being lost by a digital generation. So that's my point. And I'm interested in people's opinions of that. The more you use a DAW and digital technology, the further you're getting away from the 70s and 80s punk, and even in the 90s, punk analog approach to creation.
Thank you. All right, this is going to be good. Thank you very much, Rob. Rezi, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
That, Rob, really resonates. And one of the little distinctions that I think it brings to light is, to some extent, yeah, you're looking for sounds, but we know how to find sounds, and there's other methods, but we're looking for inspiration. We're looking for excitement. We're looking for a moment that we get carried away in the creative process. And a rarity of the event, nobody might know in the end. It doesn't necessarily come out in the recording where everybody that listens to it can say something truly unique happened there, but it's these little sparks of excitement in the creation process that we can string together and carry into other branches and directions. So I'm drawn back to this one time. That's two things that actually come to mind that are really specific to this analog kind of aesthetic that you're doing, where it's an interpersonal. The first one was we're working on a song way back in the day, and the tube amp that we're playing the guitar through, the power amp tubes were just about fried. They were gone. They were breaking up in a way that wasn't predictable, didn't sound good. It didn't sound silky smooth, beautiful distortion. It was like really crapping out, like the last bits of audio were getting through these things, and it wasn't going to last long. And it dramatically changed the entire direction of the song, and it became the actual featured sample, these little bits of guitar that we're recording at the moment, and they were the things that defined the tune from there, and they were actually the samples that were triggered live, and having those sounds in the song, they just sounded like some guitar, but they informed, you know, the direction of the tune. And then the other sort of idea is people with their hands on faders in a room. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a thing. That's the you know, get as many devices together that have filter sweeps and filter you know, envelope to filter amounts on 16th notes, and everybody's twisting them at the same time, and you're all sitting on the floor in the dark with the machines synchronized together, doing bleeps and bloops, and, you know, recording a jam session of that. Things happen differently every time, and if you're like mixing down to 2-track from that sort of event, and you're getting these unique performances based on people's hands on faders, not recording the automation and refining it later, that can be a super fun, memorable experience that also changes the course of the song a little bit as those things develop.
Thank you very much, man. You just nailed that. Drake, I'm going to throw this to you, and then Rezi, can you just hold the floor down for a sec? Thank you very much.
Yeah, the core of my setup has been analog electron gear, synths, sampler. And I kind of got to a point where, like for my live performance, everything was like sequenced out, start to finish song wise. And really the only thing dynamic happening in the performance was the vocal side. I started to feel kind of like, it was just maybe a few steps above like glorified karaoke kind of thing. And that was, it has become really unsatisfying for me. So what I'm doing now is playing around with creating, I'm trying to get to a point where I'm delivering a dynamic performance, but I have to have kind of a balance between a dynamic performance and, you know, at the same time, a performance that has some structure within it. It's not going to be a complete noise session like that. So, yeah, I'm kind of creating some basic patterns within all the analog gear and then jamming with it, essentially. And I'm getting to a point where half of the time what's coming out I like. The other half of the time it's not quite. And Rob, like you're saying, everything that I'm doing, I'm recording so that I can go back and check out. And some of the stuff that I really didn't like in the moment, or I felt was just like, oh, you know, I'm fucking up here. I listened to it later and it was just, you know, actually it's all right. It's just not what I had in mind at the time. So it's kind of like that improvisational aspect coming out. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because I'm playing around a lot with analog gear, and there are some things that happen that you don't necessarily you can't predict it. So
Before we go to Alex, Drake, do you spend a lot of time going back through these recordings and thinking back to moments that you know were fuck ups and that you're going to utilize?
to a certain extent, I do it more if I'm trying to put together sort of a pre-record that's going to stream, or I'm going to, you know, post it somewhere, or it's going to be a part of an event. Oftentimes lately, because this is new and I'm trying to kind of, you know, dial it in. I'm recording it over and over and over again, and yeah, I'm going back and I'm reviewing it and trying to figure out, you know, here's where it went sideways. And you know, it's difficult because in one sense, I want it to be somewhat predictable, and I want to be in the moment while I'm performing and not be thinking so much, because I find if I'm thinking too much, things tend to go sideways. But I have to balance that out as well. It's a challenge.
Right, of course. I mean, that's the work. That's putting in the work. That's really great. I mean, I find it to be challenging to go back to recorded stuff. I like doing it, but I think that making some kind of mental note of where things went awry and that you have an intention to go back to it is like, I mean, that's a valuable skill to have. It's really cool. So Carl is back. I think we're going to go to Alex, but take it away.
Thank you very much. That was great. Alex, hit us.
I feel this randomness that's sort of missing out of the door is because there is there isn't something that's like how do you say, like throwing sand into the gear. Like you usually I get it back if I have like either something live recorded, or maybe I'm sequencing my DAW with an external piece of gear, even if it's digital, just because the one piece of gear with its processor, which has one clock rate, is talking about this ancient or like 40-year-old protocol to my computer, and that gives it like a certain magic. I don't know why, but it feels different than just putting in the MIDI notes into the piano roll and playing it back. And I feel the same with like making weird feedback loops, going digital to analog and to digital again. Just having like this grain into the gears. I don't know how to call it else, but I feel like that's much of it. And I've been arguing with Christian in the chat about the difference between digital and analog. And for me, I think models have become really good. Like the Softtube emulation of the Dubfer system sounds really much like the real thing. But to use it feels much different because the Softtube stuff is much more well behaved than the actual modules. Because sometimes with the actual modules, things happen and I have no idea why. Maybe it's because I patched something weird and there's like a feedback, or maybe I've overdriven something, or maybe there's just fluctuations in the power supply or something. I don't know. But the difference that I feel is that there's like something happening. I don't know why, but I react to it and there's like another feedback loop going from me to the gear because I like something, or don't like something, and then I change it. And so like I'm sort of having like this conversation with the machine. Yeah, sorry if this has little direction, but that's like
No, that's actually really perfect. A conversation with the machine. Can I ask you a question? Ivan, I see your hand. Just give me one sec. Alex, do you ever use noise, actual noise, to modulate, for example, a filter, besides being a volume thing or besides being standard a sample and hold? Do you ever use noise, for example, to modulate a filter?
Only in digital synth, because I don't have a noise module. I wanted to sample noise out of my analog mixer, like deliberately putting a cable in without something in the other end to make it into an antenna, and then putting the gain so high that I get the noise amplified. I wanted to try that, but I haven't spent the money on a noise module or something like that.
I don't want to talk about gear acquisition syndrome, and I don't want to tell you to get a noise generating thing, and I don't want to tell you to get the dope for one. But I will say noise is great because, and Ivan, don't fucking start. Noise is excellent because if you put it in on a filter as an actual modulation, just a tiny amount, so the noise is actually opening and closing the filter itself. It adds 1972 to the modular. It makes it sound old. It's great. Thank you so much, Alex. I always love your brain. Ivan, blew my mind.
Yeah, going back to the pre-canned versus live parts, and the whole karaoke thing. It's a thing, and it might be an important thing. Particularly if you're going to play live. I've seen some very good acts that everything is just sequenced and it's essentially karaoke, and they can make up for it by having a lot of stage presence. You can make up for it, but while you're working on that, like I'm ensuring that every time I write a new thing, there's always a place for something to be played live, because once we start getting out on stage, I don't want to just be standing there waiting for the next track to kick off. Like I just won't feel like I've got a reason to be on stage. So absolutely, no, and there's lots of ways to do that. So experiment and find a thing that works for you, and it will probably be golden. Is it's just way better than hitting play and then grabbing the microphone and just standing there. Because I've seen that a few times, and it's like, oh, I like you. I want to like you more. You just need to like you when you're on stage. I don't not want to be that guy. Also, like 2 weeks ago, I finally got over myself, and I moved the Alita off the rack and that left me with room for the Op6 and the Mod Wave. So now I'm multiple things. I mean, I haven't had those out in ages, and they feel like brand new synths again. And between those two and the Hydrosynth, tons of opportunities are happening.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Ivan. I really appreciate that. I want to, at some stage, something else I want to bring up just before I throw it to you, Rob, is how to make a synth sound like another synth. But that's a conversation possibly for later today. Modulating and shit. Rob, I want to hear your, and can I go after you if that's okay? Rob, hit me, baby.
Yeah, I guess my point was not so much to argue, whether to use valves and op amps versus TTL logic and digital audio workstations, but it's more to do with having a biological component to the creation process, and maybe for Drake the performance process, the biological component versus the machine. And you might need to fuck around a bit to work out how can your biological presence be a little bit more front and center other than twiddling a filter knob. Is there something that you can do? Like I was fucking with this D-beam thing on the Roland SB808, and it's like the theremin. You can do stuff with that to be more human in the loop, and you could put glow tips on your fingernails or something like that in a pitch black room, and be part of the creative process. Be the instrument. And it's part of the DIY punk philosophy is make shit up, but do it yourself. Be you. Create your own shit. Don't copy everybody else. And I was kind of reawakened. I watched this punk band from Australia called Amaral and the Sniffers. And they make all their videos themselves. They mix all their music themselves. Everything's made by themselves, and it's dirt cheap. And it reminds me of watching Bon Scott in the cemetery singing his AC/DC stuff back in the day. And they're basically reinvigorating that genre of hard rock and punk with the very basic components of creation. And it's mostly human and less stuff and there is zero digital element to that as far as I can work out. It's all mostly, you know, core rock and roll instruments, a mixing desk, and, you know, I don't know what they're recording it to, but obviously it's going to get to digital at some stage, but there is no digital finesse or digital element to that. And I'd like to think, how can I be more creative with more analog approaches to creation? And I've started to do that with video as well. So use more lenses, Fresnel lenses. So I've recorded a projection through a crystal ball to get more immersion. You would have seen that on the Discord recently. Playing with more optical techniques rather than true digital techniques. There is some digital in there, of course, but to me, that's becoming more creative and more make shit up on the fly. And that's really the essence of punk.
Thank you. I am unmuted. All right. Thank you very much. This is really excellent. So firstly, so I dragged my old expression pedal and sustain pedal out of the drawer that I have them in for 10 years because I so have to get one of them, but I'll never use it. And it changes the way I make music. And that's why these live streams that I'm doing at the moment are really changing so many things, because normally when I never use a sustain pedal. What is it? Controller 65? Never. But if you want to get from one chord to another, a sustain pedal is a fantastic way to do it, because you can go from one chord, hold down the sustain, then hit the second chord, let them swell and let them be this cluster, and then take your foot off. And it's like tension, changing the gear release. Fantastic. Same thing with an expression pedal. They're super cheap, like 20, 30 bucks. Most keyboards have got an expression pedal input. They're passive. They're not powered. They're all passive, or most of them are. And you can, it's just fascinating how different if you're playing something with both hands and you let the foot, because that gets converted. It's an AD, so it goes from analog into digital, and it gets broadcast in MIDI, usually controller 4, I think. Or you can make it whatever controller you want. But the point is that when you're twiddling a knob, it's going to change the filter sweep one way. But if you use your foot, it's a different way. It's a different way. Trust me, it's a different way. So get in there and muck around. Clap tracks. Fucking clap tracks. There needs to be more clap tracks, like, you know, in the 70s, after they'd finish a session, everybody and their girlfriends and everybody who was in the studio at the time would stand around two mics and clap on the 2 and 4. Yeah, woo, come on, yeah, woo. And that was, it added a party under the track. It works. So many people go, clap tracks are dumb. It's like, no, they're not. They're awesome. Use a damn clap track. I did do a track once where the Prophet 5 crashed right at the start of the track, and it cut and it just dropped down to like this gurgle, and it took 3 minutes. So I got it, spun it around backwards, and put that in under the track. And I did put a high pass filter under it, because when the Prophet 5 is low, it's fucking low. And it just gurgles its way up this kind of like slow rise. It's fantastic. Crashes are great. Try to play as much stuff as you can. Actually play it in there. Whether it's MIDI or audio, play it. And if it is MIDI, try to correct it only a little bit. You know, like pushing the quantize towards the note, not hard on. Play it. Because the classic, so much classic stuff, and I'm talking about like the classic EDM deadmau5 kick, the kick doesn't hit on the ones. It hits on the first one because it was played and it's got groove. And that's a really good excuse for you to actually practice your instrument. Because if you're going to practice it or do a live stream or put the song down, practice the part. Don't type it in, practice it. Because, and the worse player you are, this could actually work in your advantage, the better it could be. because as you are playing it over and over again, this is step one of the refining process of the riff or the part. That if there's a problem with it, if it sucks, if it's not good enough, you're going to figure that out before you even put it down to tape. Because in the olden days, what they used to do is figure it out in a rehearsal studio, play it in a whole bunch of gigs, then they'd record it. So when they were standing in front of the, actually mics go on and tapes rolling, they were good at playing it. Now it's type it into a computer. So you're missing out on all of this quality control that happens. Like maybe a bass line that goes dung, 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 dung is fucking boring. Maybe there's something else that you could do. And you figure that out by fucking around. So rehearse the parts and then play them live. I used to get surprises when I would demo a mix for the first time. I don't anymore. And I'm talking like, well, it really started when I started using a sequencer. Because back in the, when I was starting out, it was a keyboard, a drum machine, and an SH-101 doing an arpeggiator, and making a song and writing it down on a piece of paper. Then I'd record it, and hearing it all come together, it was a surprise. But I don't get that surprise anymore, and it's just an interesting observation. Like I want to go back to, for me anyway. And it has a lot to do with the physical process of less computer, more muscle. I think that's actually a Nitzer Ebb song. Less computer, more muscle. Anyway, Muscle and Crash. Yep, that's it. That's all I got. And it gets back to, once again, getting back to doing what you enjoy. Have fun. Again, have fun. Learning the parts is fun. Have fun. Alex, heal me.
I think that's why I love the Electron boxes so much, because, and maybe other gear that has like similar functions, or just recording automation with a knob and not drawn in with a mouse. I feel like that gives the sound much more live and, I don't know, vibrance, excitement. And I also felt the same about the MPC 1000 that I have, because there you can use it as a step sequencer, but it's much harder than just playing it in. And if it's not right, you just delete it and play it in again until you're content with what you got. And some of the patterns, I still listen back and think, wow, that sounds really interesting. So yeah, totally get that.
It's really weird how interesting's always been a backhanded insult. I'm not sure what it's like in Germany, but in English, when somebody hears your music and go, oh, that's really interesting, usually it's a bit of a fuck you. But it's curious that you want interesting. Like you want something that's, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. It's that weird, quirky thing that could potentially make the track different to anything else you've done or anyone else has done. Some of the greatest music I've heard, the first time I heard it, I just went, the fuck is this? Two Dark Park comes to mind. And a lot of music comes to mind, where to create that music, obviously somebody was taking a really big risk, and risk is such a good thing. And I think risk is something that's possibly missing a bit. We could talk about risk because it's great fun, or we could talk about modulation sources, but I do love talking about risk. But what do you guys want to talk about? Total silence. Okay, so I think risk, how to do more risk, is the art of risk is trusting your gut. You know, the riskiest thing you can do is probably trust your gut. Because what society is telling you, or what you think society is telling you musically and otherwise, may not be right for you. So trust your gut. We can talk about this more. I really don't feel like anyone gives a shit. Or we could talk about how do you make your synthesizer sound like another synthesizer. Here's Alex, though.
For me, trusting my gut is really dangerous, because if I trust my gut, I'll never take any risk. Because I always feel like I have to play it safe. And going out and putting myself out there feels very scary.
Yes.
So I need to ignore my gut and do it anyway.
What do you have to lose?
A lot, but yeah.
Musically, what do you have to lose? Like where you are in your career, where I am in, where we all are in our careers, what do you have to lose? Because remember, the thing that probably got you people into your music in the first place was, oh, this is a bit different.
I think the trick is, Alex, is don't worry about what everyone else thinks. Just do what you want to do.
Yeah. You can't, you cannot be, your art is the most precious thing you have. And it's your opinion and your thought and the way you see the world. And it's you've got to remember that in its purest form, it will resonate with people who are like you, and there are actually a lot of people like you. Here's a bunch of them here, and there's a bunch more watching, and then. And that's it's very, very difficult to do that, because when there is so much pressure to do something that's consumable in 30 seconds and it hits the chorus within the first 30 seconds and it doesn't say this and blah, blah, blah isn't going to get offended and all of this other, and it's using the correct sounds and the correct bass line so the DJs can play it and da, 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 da. Sure, sometimes you got to throw pearls to the swine. Oh, I said that. But sometimes you've got to go, you know what, these pearls are for me. And you've got to do something real to yourself. And that is the most joyous, wonderful thing. Interesting, I was watching Rick Rubin talking about A Gift to God, and I was reading some of the comments, and they were really interesting comments where people were saying, look, man, if I've produced as many gold albums as you are, and my Spotify plays and my streaming plays are in the millions per month, tens of millions per month, and I lived in my beautiful mansion on Hollywood Hills. He lives just up there, I think. You know, I'd be telling people to do what they do and be true to themselves too. And it is interesting that does hold water, that there is a point where you have to give to Caesar. Think of it like tax, man. You give to Caesar what is due to Caesar. But you must, it's very, very important that you are still experimenting in what you do. And if all else fails, remember the Duran law, which is 4 songs for the for hits, to pull people into the fold, 4 songs for the people who are already in the fold, and 4 songs, or is it 3 songs? 3 songs, I can't remember. And 4 songs, a third of the album is for the band, to experiment. And that will keep you going, and that will keep one for the master, one for the dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. Who is the little boy who lives down the lane, and why does he get a third? Is he your pimp? I don't know. But there is something very funny in that nursery rhyme that I really want to find out about, but nobody's ever been able to tell me, is who is the little boy who lives down the lane, and why does he get a third? Like, and why does what you don't get anything? The fuck? Sorry, but anyway, I'm going to go back to the Duran thing, and then I'll throw it back to you, Alex, because your hand's still up. I think I just broke Rob. Alex, Does that nursery rhyming exist in German?
I don't think so.
One for the master and one for the slave dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the
I know that
lane.
melody, but I've never heard the lyrics.
Really? It fucked us all up. It made us the broken vessels that you see before you. That's why we're listening to industrial music, because we don't know who the little boy down the lane. And what if he comes out? We will recognize him by his very nice woolen tights and jacket. Oh no, it's the little boy down the lane, who is by now like 300 years old and probably a vampire. But maybe he was a vampire the whole time, and he is a little boy vampire in very nice woolen clothing. That's why it's so expensive. Is the little boy's been stockpiling wool for like 300 years. Okay, Alex, back to you.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most afraid of to enter topic is just putting myself into situations I don't know how to deal with. Not necessarily with people being angry, but just with chaos around me. And no idea where I should go. Anyway, I would have another topic, but maybe we can talk about synthesizers imitating other synthesizers.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to throw that to the back of the line. But what I will say, because I see Drake's hand, and I know Rob wants to say something here. I will say that the thing about music is that it really is kind of a get out of jail free card. You can say shit in your lyrics that you cannot say on the internet. And believe me, you can say stuff in your lyrics and you can get away with a lot of stuff. And also the music that's underpinning it as well. You know, you can be saying something really happy and funny in this really funny little happy Alice Goes to Wonderland melody underpinned by these terrifying chords and terrifying music. But you can get away with a lot. I'm going to throw this to Dr. Drake.
Yeah, that really resonates with me, Carl. I particularly with the last release, I thought certainly some of the DJs that have been playing my stuff, because I can see publicly what their opinion is on certain things. I was like, there's no way they're going to hate me now, but it hasn't affected anything at all. Maybe a lot of people aren't listening to the lyrical content. Maybe the lyrical content isn't clear enough to be discernible. I don't know. But I think as an artist, it's important to take risks. If you don't take risks, you're not going to potentially go to places, you may become stagnant. My own music has kind of been like this angry kind of, screaming kind of thing. I'm working on a new album now that's it's predominantly hip hop beats. And, initially in the beginning, I was like, like the group of DJs that are playing my stuff right now are really into this angry, high energy, screamy stuff. I'm like, it's going to be hated. I'm like, I don't care. It's where I'm at right now. And I don't want to keep creating the same album each release. I want to try different things out. And that's just where this one's going. And I'm at a place right now where I don't care. I have to create for myself at the end of the day. If I like what's coming out, what's, the end result, then that's going to be good enough, because what do I have to lose at this point? Very little. I have more to lose if I don't take chances, right? And do what I want to do.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because if you do what you need to do, you are responsible for you. If you do what you think other people want you to do, you become responsible to them, and they don't give a fuck about you. They don't fucking care. And you could give them everything they want. They won't play you on their show or their dance floor or whatever. Someone once said, hang the DJ, hang the fucking DJ. He should have also said, and while you're at it, hang those pricks who are outspoken in their fucking reviews. Fuck those bastards as well. Hang those cunts too.
I have to qualify too, though, Carl. It's still industrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beats are just a little different.
Oh, you mean with the hip hop?
Yeah.
Dude, hip hop is industrial music. Industrial music is hip hop. It all spawned out of the same club in Chicago. It's all SPX, SP12, 1200. It's the same gear. It's the same samplers, same studios. It is the same fist in the air. Fuck yeah. It's the same thing. I mean, like, obviously they're not the same thing, but the spot, dude, I fucking love hip hop.
Saul Williams and Trent Reznor did an album together. Trent Reznor produced the album and did a little bit of backing vocals on that. It was just, in my opinion, it was a brilliant album.
I'll have to listen to it. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. Alex, I'm going to throw this to you now.
Yeah, maybe just to again put one on top. For me, it's not lyrics. It's not what kind of music I make. It's just things like, am I ready to play live? Am I ready to deal with the situation? Am I prepared enough? Am I a liability in certain ways? Things like that. That's, yeah.
All right. So, don't worry about playing live, because you play live when you play live. I haven't played live in 7 years, and fuck that. I will argue endlessly whether you have to play live or not. I'll lose that argument, but I don't care. There's also streaming. There's other things. You got to move when you're ready to move. That's the thing, is that, you know, you're the one that has to change the light bulb, because it's your light bulb. No one else can tell you to change the light bulb. But the thing about it is that you need to change that light bulb, because there is music in you and it's got to get out. And the worst periods of my life is when I stopped making music. And I regret it with every bone of my fucking body, because of a job or a girl or something where being a grown-up, what I thought was being a grown-up, forced me to make decisions that were contrary to who I was. And I can't let that go. You know, I regret that so much, and I have to make music. So you got to do what's right for you. I'm going to throw this to Mr. Rob.
I know what happened to the little boy down the lane.
Tell us, Rob, tell us.
He was eaten by those fucking sock puppets. You know that?
Yes!
They take the children into the woods and they eat the children? That's
Yes.
exactly what happened to him.
That's what happened to him.
The sock puppets inherited the earth because of that, because
They
got so much
did.
wealth.
It's really funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's really funny. Go ahead.
I want to hear what you have to say.
I was going to just say to Alex, it sounds like, I'm guessing here, making a bold-ass assumption that you've got a group of friends who want to perform live, maybe, or there's pressure in your social group for you to go and do stuff live. And, you know, everyone's got anxiety. I used to get anxiety for whatever I was doing in public as well. And I still do, but I've gotten better at it over the years. So it takes time, and you're only going to get better at practicing. So it's that taking a risk is accepting that you've got to get your ass out there and do it. But to Carl's point, if you're getting pressured into doing something you don't really want to do, then fuck them.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that. Yeah.
Fuck them. Fuck them. And do we want to talk about synthesizers? Oh, Alex, I'm sorry. I see your hand.
I don't know why the thumbs up came just now. It's just literally, if I'm going to talk to the club owners about performing live, am I ready? Will I be able to deliver? Is everything gear, like technical, be okay? Stuff like that. I think nobody is pressuring me except my own drive to do it. But I'm always a very scared person, but as I said, I'm just starting to do it anyway.
Awesome. That's fucking great, man. And also remember, a lot of gigs are going to come from bands as well. And also, once you do one gig, there's usually quite a few other gigs that follow, which is it's this follow-on effect. Or it used to be back in the olden days. In the olden days. So synthesizers and shit. Oh, actually, we're getting on to 11 o'clock, so maybe we'll talk about synthesizers and shit next week. Love and distortion to everybody who's leaving. Ivan's going. We're going to wrap this thing up. Diana, if you're there, because I can't raid. Normally at this point I'd raid, but I can't raid because fucking everything's broken here and I hate my life. Thank you for being a part of this. Every Saturday we're here, roughly this time. Thank you, ANGELSPIT'S Patreon, for $3 a month. You can help me keep going and doing my mad shit. There's a whole bunch of awesomeness, but right now we're going to raid to MTV TV because it's the greatest thing in the galaxy. And Diana, hit that raid button because it's amazing. And good night, everybody on fucking Instagram. Bye, Instagram. But everybody else who's still here, we're going to end this damn thing. We're going to hang back here and chat. And Diana, raid that puppy. You're the best. Bye. 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 I don't actually know how to stop this thing. Oh, no, I do it from here. Bye. Bye. I don't know how to stop it. Ah! 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 How do I stop it?